Okay, this is the August meeting of the New Jersey Woodturners. My name is Bob Amarant. Please keep your mics muted. If you have a question, raise your hand, and then I'll let you ask your question. I think almost everybody in your dialogue box there, if you have, please mute.
Are you recording, Bob?
I'm recording, yes. Can everybody please mute your microphones? We have guests here from the Garden State Marquetry Society, the Keystone Woodturners, and the Bucks Woodturners. Tonight we've got a very different demonstration. We got my good buddy Craig Newton, who has gotten me addicted to veneering now. We met about a year ago. He lives on a couple miles up the hill from me, and he's gotten me away from wood turning on a temporary basis. For our presentation tonight, we're going to do like a 10-minute video. And let me show you Craig. Let's see. That's Craig. And we're going to do a little 10-minute video that's going to include a combination of his shop tour. He's got this really cool shop in his backyard. It's going to show his equipment and his furniture restoration business. And then he's going to show us some of the jewelry boxes, cremation urns, and then he's got he's got a really cool gun case that he's going to show us. All right, so now I'm going to share a screen.
Okay, we'll begin the shop tour. If you look around, you see I like old cast iron equipment. I enjoy the stuff that was made during the 50s, 40s. I have a good time with that equipment. It's usually right on and excellent quality. We'll pan around the shop. We'll look at some of the items that are in progress right now. I'm dealing with a lot of furniture. I deal with a lot of conservation houses, restoration houses, antique dealers. They bring me material to either repair or refurbish. This particular piece that we're looking at right now is a high quality dresser from about 1905. It has a beautiful Art Nouveau mirror attached to it, which isn't visible right now, but it's going to be quite a piece when it's done. And we had to re-veneer the top drawers, and a friend of mine is in the process of stripping that right now. I have another piece here that is a total basket case, circa 1970s, and it's a piece you could see that there's tremendous water damage on it. I would not have accepted this piece except for the fact that this piece is a family piece. It's the last piece that this particular party has of his father's. And I did accept it because of that, and I will restore it and bring it back. He'll get another 100 years out of it. This particular piece right here is in its final stages. It's a library table from about 1890, 1900, and they wanted this piece cut down to be made into a coffee table, which I normally don't do. But again, this piece was pretty much of a basket case, and I brought it back. And now, again, they'll get another 100 years out of it. I have my first coat of sealer on it. And yeah, there's the 6 inch or 5 inches that I cut off of each leg. And it gives you an idea what that piece looked like, the entire piece looked like, that finish. Here we have some drawers that need to be made. It's on top of my nice old shaper. Here's a couple drawers that I just finished up gluing. Again, the same party whose father passed away, and his pieces, he brings me some real garbage to work on. Anyway, here's another piece. This piece belongs to a dealer. If you look at this piece, it's a very, very cool piece. It has stenciling, which was not part of the original piece. That was probably added 100 years after this piece was manufactured. And, yeah. And if you look at the width of the sides and the top and so on, that's all one board. So that was made from a tree without any seams. And you can tell that's very early because it's early wood. In other words, you're not going to find trees that wide today. They were taken down when people first got to these locations. This is another very early blanket chest. This one, we just have to clean it up a little bit. It's circa, I would say, about 1790, 1800. Very nice piece. Over here, we have a table that needs to be redone. I'm going to let my friend handle that. And then we have an armoire from about 1940 that came from Virginia. Basically, you look around, I have a lot of hand tools. You know, I've been collecting tools for many, many years. A couple planers, a couple sanders, nice DeWalt saw. I have air conditioning and heat in the shop. Tunes, of course, you know, and a fairly decent supply of paints and varnishes and stains. And then I have all sorts of hand tools and clamps and just a variety of a lot of different things that I've collected over the years. And what I do is this particular bench was an old drafting table that I found, and I just converted it into a workbench. It's great. Put a piece of plywood over it so it overhangs, and I could clamp things to it. And I have everything I need. Okay, another issue or another opportunity I found is making boxes, jewelry boxes, boxes for cremated remains, and shadow boxes, all sorts of cool things. So you can see this particular piece has a walnut butt top with a very simple geometric design inlaid in it. And this is it's chestnut with a walnut base and some more chestnut on the top. And this was harvested. This particular tree was harvested out of West Orange. I used to control a property down there. And I make the bins, a nice little spot for your rings. Inside, you see where Bob gets his idea for a surprise when you open your box lid for his gun cases. I do that as well. This particular piece is another nice piece. Again, chestnut with a cool interior design. And we have all the little boxes and spaces. And again, we have space for the rings. And it's just a cool, nice piece. Again, this was the same piece of chestnut. Came out of West Orange. The top has some walnut, which was harvested locally. This particular box is a veneer piece. It doesn't have much solid except for the top. That's a walnut top. And again, you have a book match on the inside, which is mahogany. The outside of the box is ebony. And if you look at how I did this, I brought the pattern, the grain configuration, into the box. Even though it kind of looks like it's solid wood, it's not. It's a plywood piece with nice ebony veneer on it. This particular piece, the next one, is just a plain box, but it has such an outrageous grain that I didn't think that we'd have to put anything else on it to embellish it. It's an olive ash burl piece, and just really nice little small jewelry box. Again, I brought the grain configuration around into the edges, and it looks like solid wood. This particular piece is a nice little rosewood piece, has a gloss finish on it. You can see the sheen when the light hits it in a certain way. Again, very simple. It's flocked on the inside, just gives it a $1 million appearance. This particular piece is French walnut, and I decided to put a really cool inlay in it.
That's spectacular.
And you can see the white stripes with the black accents around the sides. The sides are lacewood. It's just, again, all veneer, just really a cool piece. You know, just really, really outstanding, I think. This is a piece that's kind of crazy. There is a market for this. People who unfortunately pass, their families want to bury them or take their remains and put it up on a mantle or a shelf of some sort. And that's what this is for. People who are cremated. This is a box that the remains go in. And it has a section over here with a little plexiglass front that will allow you to put a prayer card in or a photo of the deceased. And it has a little section next to where the box would be sitting for mementos or other paraphernalia of the deceased. And that's kind of a cool thing. It's a little different. All right, this box is it's a box, but it's a clock. All right, I decided to do a nice deco clock to match the bedroom set that we have in our other room. But not only is it a clock, but it also basically it hides in plain sight what you need in case. So it's a pretty cool item.
Okay, so we actually had about 20 minutes of that, but I figured 10 minutes would be good. So again, this is Craig Newton. And Craig, take it away.
Hi, I'm Craig. I've been veneering for probably 35, 40 years. Started by accident. Found that it was just such a creative medium. You can do so many things with it. There's so many different options and opportunities. It's not hard to get involved. The tooling that you need is not heavily sophisticated. It's very simple, not expensive. Go through some of the tooling first. Basically, I cut my inlays and everything in with a razor blade. So this is a wallpaper knife and basically a straight edge razor, and it's very simple, very inexpensive.
It's on this camera. It's on this camera.
Okay, we need a nice square, something that's fairly accurate. Just a regular razor knife, nothing fancy. Some small dental tools with points so that you can basically hook into your piece of veneer. Sometimes they're too small to pick up, and this will get the job done. A little scraper so that you can scrape excess wood. A roller, just a wallpaper roller, and your basic veneer saw. Very, very important. Equipment, a pencil, and then some squares, a straight edge. You can deal with different straight edges, all different types. Doesn't matter as long as they're accurate. And then some measuring tools. I use plastic because you can see through them, and also I like to use the metric system. With veneering, you need some clamps also, and a piece of sacrificial wood. And we'll be working on some inlay, but before we do that, we'll get into the basic veneering. We'll talk about some of the veneer work. What we want to do today is do a geometric design, similar to what Bob did on his gun case.
So Craig got me hooked on this, and these are some of the projects that I've done. So this is now, actually, Craig did all the market or the parquetry on this, right?
Well, this is a 4-piece book match. It's a figured rose.
This is a black powder rifle.
Bob came to me with a gun case a couple months ago, and he asked if I could help him flock it. So I basically made him flock his own gun case. But I said to him, I said, well, you just have a plain walnut top. Why don't you let's jazz it up a little bit with an inlay? And he said, no, we'll do the next one. So this was the next one, and then this one was the next one. So
this one, I got to take credit on this one.
I have to say I'm very proud of him. This is not an easy thing to do. It's geometric pattern with the 3D effect. And then inside, he did it again. So there's a lot of hours into this. I think he's kind of a crazy guy now. Anyway, back to the basic veneering.
Well, I do want to say one thing.
Oh, okay.
So Craig did tell me, and now I'm a believer, that veneering, if you're doing flat work, veneering can take your projects up to an entirely different level, which is, I think, what I did on these gun cases, right? So he blew my mind and expanded my horizons. So, all right, so Craig, go ahead.
Okay, so basically veneering allows you to do so many different things because there's so many different types of material. You're dealing with all these exotic woods that you really, they're just out of reach because of cost or rarity, but it does come in veneer, and you have the options of using it in all different ways. And you know, there's just so many different materials you can purchase or get a hold of somehow. There's regular woods. This is a piece of mahogany right here. This is a piece of sycamore, and you could see the I don't know if you could see it, but the grain configuration on this thing is just amazing.
Hey, wait a second. It's getting too much reflection on it. This is better. Yeah, tons of patterns.
Yeah, tons of patterns, and it also you can buy dyed veneers, which give you. I mean, some woods do not come in all colors, so dyeing is an option. I'm going to talk about how they cut veneer and what it's about. All right, when veneer is made in a factory, it's basically cut. They take a piece of wood and they slice it. They just continually slice it. Each time they slice it, it's approximately a 32nd of an inch.
Well, isn't it? It's really done on a giant lathe, right?
That's a different type.
Oh yeah, this is
This is slice veneer. A lathe, they put it on a giant lathe, and then they bring the knife to it,
right.
And then that will basically give you a flat cut surface. They make plywood like that.
Right. Okay.
Right? That's a continuous roll. This is different. This was a small piece of wood that they had, and they decided, well, you know, we could probably get a certain amount of money for this piece of mahogany, but if we cut it into veneer, we could probably get 20 times that amount. So anyway, what they do is they slice it. Each time they slice it, they take it and they put it down in order, and they just keep doing that. And this is basically one piece is identical to the next because it's so thin. So you could get these geometric patterns.
So how do they slice it if it's not on a lathe?
They hook it into a machine and they just slice it.
Some kind of
They do it with
bandsaw?
burl. They'll hook it into a piece, you know, somehow. They'll clamp it and then they'll just slice it.
Yeah. Okay. They can do it that thin. Cool.
They could do it that thin. So you can you take pieces when you have a flitch, right? So this is a piece of butt walnut. Right? You can see the configuration. It's pretty cool. Now, if you were to try to work with this piece of wood, if it was solid, 1/2 inch or 3/4, you'd have a lot of problems because it'd end up checking. I mean, it's just so unstable. But with veneer, it's a totally different cookie. So now you could take these two pieces and basically butt joint it like that. And you can see, I don't know if you can see the configuration,
Yeah, okay.
but it can be striking. Now, if I wanted to make a tabletop, I could take 4 of these and just basically roll the other 2 over and match this grain and make a tabletop.
That's what we did here, right?
Yes. So, you know, that's one option. So you're not limited to size in retrospect. By that I mean, you can take 4 pieces of that mahogany, for example, or I could take 10 pieces of that mahogany. And I could lay that out. It's not really easy with the stuff here, but I could lay that out and basically match it. And these pieces are pretty much identical because they would cut one right after the other. And you could cut this and seam it together and basically make it something like this, which isn't that fancy. Or you can take a piece of black and make a table by putting a piece there, putting a piece here, you know, to cover this seam. And you can make a tabletop with this configuration. I mean, so if you get a flitch of wood, if it's even 12 by 12, it doesn't matter. You can make a table that's 8 by 4 or 12 by 16 even. It doesn't matter. So the option is there. It's such a versatile material. So basically, what we're going to do today is we're going to make this type of configuration, which is just basically straight pieces of wood that are cut, and you have to be very accurate because when you're dealing with this, when you're putting these designs together, if you're off even half a degree, when you put it together, if you have 6 pieces, you're off 3 degrees. That's a big gap. So you have to be right on. So what we're going to do with that is we're going to cut it, and we're going to make pieces like this. So just by cutting it into 45s or 30s or some other angle, you can get really cool geometric designs. And very, very simple, just with straight lines. There's another thing that I do. You look at some of the boxes, you have the geometric stars and so on. And that's for another day. We'll do that some other day. But this is a whole different technique. And it's a very simple technique once you get it. And you can make these pieces on a repetitive basis, and they'll be spot on each one. And it works. Okay, so let's get into making these strips. All right, so basically, your sacrificial piece of wood down on your bench. All right, what you want to do is you want to clamp it. Before you do that, let's pick a piece of veneer.
Please mute your microphones.
Okay. So what we have here is a piece of rosewood, and it has a nice straight grain configuration up here, which we're going to use. And what you want to do is you want to make one straight cut. Take your straight edge. And you don't have to be that accurate here. You just want to basically make sure that your cut is straight. And you're going to use that as a basis for your next cuts. So what I do is just going to clamp our straight edge on here. Take my little razor knife and just go along my straight edge, scoring it lightly at first, and then getting a little heavier with each cut. But you just take your time, and that piece will just blow off. There it is. And that's garbage. All right, so now we know that we have a straight edge on this piece. So what I can do now is I can set up with a repetitive cut. Okay? And what I want to do is I take this piece of mace and I put it against that straight edge that I just cut. And I'm going to take a shim that I made. And again, these tools are not expensive. This is all stuff that's scrap wood. You can just simply use it very, very quickly, easily. You can make any size shim. This is a 1/2-inch piece. And what we're going to do is we're going to shim this against that. Bring my clamps back into position. Move this, and you have a 1/2-inch, nice straight piece there. You could check, make sure that you're 1/2 inch all the way along, just like using your shim and making sure that it hasn't slid around or changed. Again, just cut it with the razor. Make sure you keep your razor blade straight against your straight edge. Otherwise, you'll have a bevel, and that bevel will make an impact on your piece. All right, so here's my half-inch piece. All right, we're going to cut one more, and then we'll talk about how that.
So really, this goes pretty fast. Once you have this basic, simple process down of making parallel strips, and you get into a groove, it goes pretty quick to make these strips.
A lot of guys who do veneer work, they like to use X-Acto blades. I like the straight edge razors because there's virtually no kerf. There's no kerf line at all. You have to change your razor a little more often than sharpening your X-Acto blade, but I still like it. Okay, so now we have an idea of how these units, these pieces are cut. All right, so what we're going to do now is assemble one of those straight edge patterns. Now, each one, it's up to you. However you want to assemble this thing, however it works for you, that's the way it's going to work. All right. Before I get into this pattern, you can see what I did here. I basically cut some of that mahogany across the grain, so it has a different look. And again, I could have cut it straight and it would have another different look. One of the things that you can do is you can make, I mean, there's a lot of furniture where the inlays are not commercially available any longer, so you have to make them. So now I can make anything. I can make any straight edge strip, you know, that I would need to deal with restoration. And these strips are also available commercially. You can buy them in 3-foot lengths, and they're pretty cool. You know, you can get into some pretty interesting banding. So that's something that you can do. You can make your own bandings. Okay, so let's get back to our little piece. And let's try to figure out how we're going to do this and how this is going to work today. All right, so I've already cut some pieces because I didn't want to bore you, and I wanted to get things moving along. So basically, we're going to configure it somehow to make it look interesting. And I think this is a nice pattern right here. All right, so you can see how that goes together and how striking that is. It's pretty interesting. All right, so now what we want to do is we're going to take this together. All right, so this takes a little time. But basically, we're just going to use blue painter's tape. I'm going to go from the center. And I'm pressing this together so I don't have a void in the seams, but very, very lightly.
I've noticed on some of the YouTube videos, guys actually try to glue these together. These little tiny pieces.
I don't know.
So not really necessary, right?
I think you're beating a dead horse.
Yeah, you got to remember, these things are only 1/32 of an inch thick. So,
Okay, so okay. Almost there.
one thing you didn't mention before is you have also made a lot of cigar boxes, right?
Yes,
Humidors. Right?
Yeah. A lot of them, people came to me, they had these huge cigars, and they, these big cigars, and they said, I want a box that holds 150 of these cigars. So we made a box. But the boxes are a lot of fun. That's the artistic end of it, but the real money is in the furniture. My specialty, again, is the veneer work and the furniture. And there aren't many people that do it anymore. So that's to my benefit.
And probably that's, you have, most of that furniture is very old, right? Like 75 years plus, that's
Oh,
something
yeah.
that comes to you?
Yes. A lot of it, I mean, it's museum quality stuff that's 200 years old. You know, and most of that type of furniture, you really don't want to modify it in any way. You just want to conserve it.
So what do you make the boxes when you're slow with the furniture?
Well, during the winter, I have more time. Obviously, during the summer, I have to take care of my property, the pool, you know, make sure my wife is entertained.
Right. Yeah, right.
So I'm busy, and people are bringing me furniture, and that's what I focus on. During the winter, I have more time, and I can do what I have to do, and also play around, so I can get into the artistic mode.
Craig is also the best bass fisherman in the county.
I was a guide for a long time. I actually stopped because the woodworking is so lucrative now. I guided for 20 years.
Wow. Okay.
I guided with float tubes, and I was the state expert on float tube fishing. If a question went to the New Jersey Fish and Wildlife about float tubing, I got it. So it was kind of fun. But anyway, this is what our piece is going to look like. And what we're going to do is we're going to take what they call veneer tape, which is a heavier tape, and it pulls everything together. So it'll close up the seams a little bit. Okay. So I use a veneer tape. There's two different types. The first type is a water-based paper tape, and basically what you do is you wet that, and you put it on the seam, and then you have to let it dry. As it dries, it pulls the pieces together. It shrinks. So it pulls it together, it makes it tighter. But it can also, sometimes the seams jump over each other. It's detrimental sometimes. This particular tape, I like because it's a dry tape. I can basically put it down, make the panel, and then I could lay this into a panel in the press immediately. I don't have to wait for it to dry or shrink or repair. Now I'm going to show you one other tool that's kind of cool. I don't know if you have one or not, but it works. Okay, this is a very sophisticated tool for veneering. All right, so basically what it is just a simple paper cutter. And what we're going to do is we're going to square this out. See how nice that works? This was my wife's paper cutter. I had to buy her another one. Of course, she said, it's not as good as the old one. You know, but it's okay.
You gotta love them, huh?
She seems to be happy now. Anyway, what we'll do is we will take that, and we could do it two different ways. All right, we could use this, because what I did was I set up jigs, all right, for 45s, 15, and 30. So just by simply placing this on here, you have your cut. All right, so we have our strip now. All right, and now we're going to make a geometric pattern out of this. And what we'll do is we'll make the box. So we're going to take this right to the corner. This is trash. All right, that's our first 45. So what we want to do now is we want to measure it and basically cut them all pretty much the same. So tip, we'll do like 4 inches. Maybe we'll do a little more.
So you're really trying to make a diamond pattern now, right?
Yeah.
Or, yeah, diamond, a pyramid triangle, I should say.
So again, I could use this. Bringing my mark right up to the knife edge. Okay, so here's my first one. Actually, we could have done it a different way and saved material. Now, even if I don't have enough material to make the 4 pieces that I need, I can basically make another one of these.
You know, one thing you could do is when you're making cutting boards or different cutting board software, that you can experiment with colors and widths, so you could see what's appealing to you prior to actually putting any blade to the wood. And there's several free cutting board software programs online. You definitely want to do that if you're using hardwood that's, you know, 1 inch thick.
So now you're beginning, you can see how this is starting to come together.
You want to show that top over here, what you're trying to get to, underneath that tub?
It's over here. One like this. Well, where's that other piece that's square?
Well, yeah.
Okay. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to make this pattern.
Right.
All right. I think what I did was I cut too much. So I'm going
Yeah,
to...
it's really the same as right here. You make the square, then you make the 2 L brackets, and that surrounds it. That kind of looks like a Star Wars fighter to me. But you see, this goes pretty quickly, and it doesn't take a lot of tools. You can see there's definitely some skill involved with it, but it's not a big investment to do this.
No. So obviously I am out of material, so we have to make another one. So we're going to do that real quick.
Okay.
So
So what do you think got you started doing this? So where was the spark that got you?
okay, what happened was years ago, before I retired, I was a property manager. I ran property all over the state, but I did run, if people are familiar with West New Jersey, I ran a property called the Village Green. It was 1,200 units, and basically we set up shops in basements of the different buildings. We had a refrigeration shop, we had an electrical shop, we had a glass and screening shop, and then we had a woodworking shop, which just happened to be underneath where I lived. So that made it very convenient. So one day we had to go buy some cabinetry. So we went down to Lakewood with a number of trucks to buy the cabinets to refurbish these kitchens. And when we got there, we were loading the trucks, and in the bay was a pile of oak veneer. And the guy that was loading the truck, I approached him and I said, listen, could I buy that veneer? He says, no, he says, we're throwing that away. He says, I can't give it to you because I'll get into trouble. I said, okay. So we leave, we get back to the Village Green, we unload, and underneath the pile of cabinets was this pile of veneer. I stuck it in there. So I started playing with it, making doors and things, and it was great. So I just continued.
Cool.
And then I got into the artistic end of it, and it's just been wonderful. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to reproduce this, I'm going to look at what I have here. All right, so I have this particular piece. I need a sycamore. All right, so before we do anything, I'm going to cut a straight edge. And one of the things that you do have to watch out for is when you're using your sacrificial piece of plywood, after a while you groove it with your razor or your veneer saw, and that could be detrimental to your straight edge. So you want to make sure that you keep moving so that you don't cut into the groove, into the groove in the plywood. So you keep moving things around a little bit.
While you're doing, I'm going to show these, okay?
Okay.
So the possibilities are endless with this. You can see with the two small squares in the center and then the two L brackets and then some ribbons around the corners. All right. So this is only really limited by your imagination. So these are future box tops.
Okay, so we're working here on a 1/4 inch strip. Right now we need 2 of those. And you can see this goes pretty quickly once you get into the groove of the box head.
So what do you say? It sounds like the furniture restoration business is about 90% of your business?
That takes up most of my business,
Yeah.
so I'm not sure this is straight.
Craig also is with the Garden State Marquetry Society, and a couple of our members, including the president, is on with us tonight, John. And they are usually very close by to our booth down at either Somerset or down at the Meadowlands.
I demonstrate down there with the Marquetry Society. 2 years ago, I won the 2 awards down there.
On the showcase up front?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I won the People's Choice, and I also won the Educators Award. Okay, so now we just have a little bit of this right here, which we already have cut. And we can put this together.
When you're buying veneers, how do you usually buy it? You're buying by the flitch or by the piece, or
There are veneer houses on the net. I would recommend going to one called Certainly Wood out of New York.
Mhm.
They have a very good product, and their customer service is excellent.
And they have wood and all the supplies and tools.
They have they have wood, mostly wood. If you're looking for the tools and information about veneering, go to a site, Joe's Veneer, or veneer.com, I think it is. Um, that particular site has everything you need: glues, vacuum presses, knives, veneer saws. It has all sorts of equipment. It has everything you need.
And actually, most of these tools are available at Home Depot, except for the veneer saw, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's the veneer saw, specialty saw. This is when you're going across the grain, right?
Yes, but I mean,
Oh, you can use it, yeah.
not only across
You
the
can
grain,
rip with it, yeah, you can rip.
but you can use it when you're cutting with the grain, because a lot of times with a wood that has a heavy grain configuration like oak,
Mhm.
when you're using a razor knife like I am right now, you can get caught in the grain and lose your straight edge. So it takes a little time to get the technique down. And,
I can attest to that. So I just started learning it, and the first 10 strokes or so that I did with the knife, it was easy for the knife to get off the straight edge, right? But after I practiced a little bit, I was able to get nice straight edges. And I did have to borrow Craig's paper cutter in order to make my gun case. There's a lot of 45s and 60 degree angles in there.
okay, basically put your tape down, cut it into sections.
Would you explain the difference between parquetry and marquetry?
Marquetry is pictures in wood. It's people who do landscapes or birds or animals, leaves and flowers.
It's an intricate puzzle.
Yes, it's a totally different gig. Parquetry is geometric designs.
Oh, straight lines.
It's all straight lines. So it's actually, I think it's a little simpler. So you can move a little more quickly, make more product.
Parquetry you're typically doing with a really fine scroll saw blade, right?
Well, that's one way, and then a lot of people use an X-Acto knife.
Really, for curves.
They use the tip
Oh,
of
geez.
the X-Acto knife, and works pretty well for them. Again, it just takes practice on all these techniques and materials.
How about the trade magazines? Is there ones for both that handle both
I am
designs? And
self-taught. There are magazines on scroll sawing and parquetry, but not parquetry, marquetry, but not much. Not that I'm aware of. But I'm self-taught. I basically just dealt with it through trial and error until I got it right, and figured out different techniques. And I actually got involved with the marquetry club at the woodworking show. I would go for years, and one year I met a gentleman who was doing flowers and leaves. Basically the same thing I do, working with veneer, but much more detailed. So I started talking with him, and for about 20 minutes we discussed it. And I had never met anyone before who was involved with this art. So he basically said to me, it's obvious you've been doing this a while, you talk the right talk. We have a society for this, why don't you come to a meeting? I went to a meeting and it was great. So, here I have people who now I've met who can teach me things. Instead of struggling with something, I could ask questions and get the information. And one thing about the Marquetry Society is the fact that there's a lot of gray hair there. And, by the time, if you have a question, there's somebody there that has the answer, really. So it's a great group. Anyway, let's get back to my paper cutter. we've already made. I'm not going to put veneer tape on this one because I'll show you what.
So as you were talking, you put that together in maybe about 10 minutes. So again, this goes very quickly.
Actually cut the tip of my finger off with this thing once. So you have to be careful, even though it doesn't seem like a very dangerous tool, it could hurt you.
Yeah.
But it was the tip of this finger, and this finger I had cut off the same tip probably 20 years earlier with a planer. I planed my finger down, and they did a skin graft, and it never really felt right. But when I cut it off on this, I decided I'm not going back to the hospital for this, and it grew back better than ever.
Really?
Yeah, better than when I had my skin graft. So
Let's see
everything worked
the
out very
damaged finger. Let's see it. Looks fine now.
Let's see, yeah, there's right there. I mean, for years I had like a hump of skin there, which was from my rear end.
Right.
You know,
Ah.
every once in a while I'd have to itch it. You know, but basically, you know, it was much better after the second time around.
A good unintended consequence.
Yes, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, avoid it if you can. Huh?
Yeah. Okay, I see the problem.
That's the problem.
Thank you, sir. Well, no, see that?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
Okay.
It's okay. There we go.
Okay.
Okay, so we have our 4 pieces. We have a little extra in case we make a mistake. So what we're going to do now is get into some assembly.
Yeah.
Okay. I really don't know what we're having. I was trying to decide what to make.
Okay.
I don't think salad's the answer, do you?
Anything.
So I think I'm gonna make an omelet real quick.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'll put it together.
Whatever.
Well, you said you were hungry.
Well, it's 8 o'clock at night.
Is this almost over?
I don't know.
I put 3 bacon.
Hey, John, mute your mic, please.
Oh, no.
Ah.
Hey, Bob, you'll need to unmute the mic.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, we're doing the center first. I'm sorry.
So what we're doing is now we're just taping this material here.
Oh, okay. I see. So you are making the square. You're just making sure that you got it straight across.
Yeah, I'm going to make.
You're
I'm
gonna
going to do the two ends first, and then I'm going to join them. I'm going to cut them and join them in the center. We're just putting this together temporarily. So you can see how that's coming together.
And just show how you're going to cut it then.
Yeah, I'm gonna cut it in a second.
Yeah, okay.
Good.
Use your roller, roll the tape, make sure you're cut your excess tape off. Okay, so what we're going to do now is use another piece of that. We'll take our straight edge, a straight edge. We're going to bring it corner to corner. This one. Press down hard on that. Thank you, cut. Okay, so this piece broke off. You can fix that later on if you want. But now you can see I have 1/2 of my square. I don't know if you can see that. Basically 1/2. So now, what I'm going to do is cut them out. I like the way the other ones came out.
Craig, it looks like you have a fair amount of scrap when you cut these off. Do you save that material for other projects?
You can, but there is another way to do it to not have as much waste. And that's by cutting this piece in the center on a 45, because it's 45 and each one of these would fit together. But in this particular case, I'm trying to do this so that you can do other patterns as well with this type of technique. But when you're dealing with veneer, you always have a lot of scrap. You know, when you're dealing with a heavy exotic that's expensive, then it could upset you. But most of the time, it's a piece of mahogany, or it's a piece of walnut, or it's nothing that fancy.
So is it sold by the square foot? How's it?
Yes, it's sold by the square foot. So of course, you know, the more exotic the veneer is, the more rare, the more expensive it is. The more figured the wood is, the more expensive it is.
But you can take these various pieces of scrap and take the tape off and use it for other projects,
Yes.
recut it.
Like this particular piece, when I cut this, I'm going to have 2 matching pieces that you could use for something else.
Mhm.
I'll show you as soon as I get this thing done here. Just make sure I'm good.
Craig, is the veneer available in different thicknesses, and what do you use?
It is available in different thicknesses. The thicker the veneer, the more difficult it is to work with. Originally veneer was cut with a pit saw, so it was very thick. So when you're dealing with very early pieces, if a piece is chipped and you have to replace a part, you know, a little piece of veneer, you have to cut it on a bandsaw. You have to make it. But most veneer is a 32nd. Rarer woods are thinner, they're cut thinner. Just do not quite get it's not quite seen.
Many of the speeches will be like the Democratic convention. There are a lot of speeches the Republicans are going to come in, more than we saw from the Democrats. Of the few live speeches that they will do tonight, in addition to John Julius, who will hear from the president's former U.S. Haley, also from Senator Tim Scott, who appears to be sort of the headliner.
I guess another reason people did this, because if you were making out of solid wood, it can get very cost prohibitive quickly. But here you can use plywood and MDF, right? And it's if you're using a lot of it, it could be very cost effective. Plus, you get all the decorative possibilities here.
Okay, so now we lost the two pieces over here. We can fix that. Remember we were talking about how their pieces are small and they're hard to deal with, so that's why you have these little sharp dental tools. So that puts that right in position. Now I could take a piece of tape and tape that. I'm moving kind of quick tonight, so I'm not going to be as accurate as I normally am, because I want to make sure that you have the idea of the techniques. But if you look here, let's see what's on this side. You look at this.
So these are the scrap pieces.
These are the scrap pieces. So now you have another configuration that you can use, just exactly as you had asked. So this is a very nice piece. This would be very interesting. Right? We have to put this one in the corner.
Yeah, so that could be another centerpiece.
Yes,
Right?
that could be another piece.
What's the main thing you're going to do? Because you're really making the square, right?
Yeah, but I'm showing how
you can use the
you
scraps.
use the scraps.
Right.
And you can make a very interesting configuration with it too. And so here's our scrap piece. You can see this is going to go together. And once I get rid of the blue tape, it's going to be a very, very striking figure.
Right.
You know, and it's your waist. So really, you're getting two pieces. You know, you're getting two figures out of this, and you can put. This is a 45, so you could add other things to this, even if it's just solid wood, to give it more influence. And so this now goes together, and there's your geometric pattern. So what we want to do now is we want to put this together. And as John from our club always says, gonna use a lot of tape. And you do use a lot of tape.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
But it's a good thing, because what if we didn't have it? How would you do this?
Keep your hand busy. Keep your hand and your mind busy. And quite honestly, when I was doing the gun cases, I did the majority of that at the kitchen counter. Mainly because it was just too hot in the shop here.
Well, the nice thing about this is there's no dust.
Yeah, that too.
No dust. You can do it at your kitchen counter.
Yeah.
You know, as long as you don't mess up the counter. That's why you need your sacrificial piece of wood.
Right.
But no, really, there's nothing there that's going to attack anything that's going to be a problem.
Other than the wife saying, "What are you doing on my kitchen counter?"
Right. She wants to make lunch.
Yeah, it was close to 95 degrees when I was making the gun cases. I'm going in the house.
That's what's nice about air conditioning.
Yep.
In the shop.
Oh yeah, your shop, you got the air.
So now we have this also. We can basically we'd have to do it somehow. I don't know. But we have these little pieces of scrap. We could probably use them for something down the road. Most of the time, though, it's kind of just you can't collect it all. So I end up throwing a lot of it away. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put veneer tape on this side. And this is our face side.
Craig, did you build that building for your shop specifically?
Yes, that was specifically built for the shop. That was a prefab, that building. They came with a truck and 3 guys. It was in 2 pieces, and it took them 6 hours to put that thing together. I was amazed. And then,
And you could be in there in 6 hours in one day.
not really, because basically it's a shell.
Sure.
So then I had to, I did the wiring, I did the insulation, I did the floor,
Drywall.
I did the drywall.
You did all that?
So, you know, that took a couple months because I was still working at the time. And you know how work gets in the way.
Mhm.
So that was a problem. But once I got it, together, I basically got involved with some of my older contacts, and they were thrilled to see me again. And I started working again. Okay, so we're using the veneer tape. And Bob asked me a good question before. Why can't you use the blue tape when you're ready to press this? And one of the reasons you can't is because the blue tape tends, when it's in the press and it deals with glue, it tends to creep. So your seams will move and it could be an issue. And so you don't want to do that.
Well, while we're doing this, hey, John from Garden State, if you want to talk a little bit about the Marquetry Society, how many members you got, when you meet, or I should say when we meet, and what you're involved with, you're welcome to, either you or Warren. Still here? John from Garden State.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, speak up. Let us know a little bit about your club.
All right, the club has been in existence since 1984. I've been active in the club and president since 1989. We meet the first Saturday of every month, except July and August. September, we usually meet the second Saturday because of Labor Day. In addition, we have some hands-on things at a workshop. But for the most part, we do demonstrations in the Monmouth County Library. which is on Route 9 in Manalapan. And anyone from any of your other clubs are certainly welcome. If you want to join, it's a whole $10 a year. A lot of people in the club do many other things other than marquetry. That's why we call it Garden State Marquetry Plus. The plus means the other things. And when I say other things, there's some crazy things that we've seen. We've seen people carve coal. We've seen stuff like the boxes that Craig makes. We have a person that builds kaleidoscopes, etc. If anyone has any questions, feel free, I'll answer them now. No questions?
Well, one thing I liked about it, as soon as you join, you get about $20. You spend $10, you get about $20 worth of veneer.
That's correct.
You get a big bag of veneer to get you started.
You'll get much more in that in giveaways.
Yeah. And for the people that don't know where that is, it's, you know, I'm in Hackettstown. It takes me about an hour or so. It's an hour south of Hackettstown.
No, I don't feel sorry for you. I drive 2 hours plus.
Yeah, well, you're over in Pennsylvania, right?
About 80 miles
Right.
away. I'm about, I'd say 35 miles northwest of Philadelphia.
Wow. And you've been doing it for years. My goodness.
Many years. Although when I first started, I lived in Yardley, right on the Delaware, so it wasn't too bad. But you know, you move, and we moved primarily for our grandkids. My wife got tired of driving 50 miles west.
Yeah.
So here we are. About veneer, ironically, a lot of it, we sell it cheap. We get it, at one time I was getting it from 2 cabinet shops. I could actually fill my car with it, my van rather. So we would get it for free. So we were selling it at one time for, like $3 a bag. So a bag would be about 4 or 5 pounds. I have not personally purchased veneer in probably 20 years. At one time, you could buy it $1 a pound. Okay, and what they would do, you'd have to buy 50 pounds, but you would get 25 pounds at a different time. In other words, so you get a bigger assortment. So that worked out. Veneer is relatively inexpensive, except for the dye veneer, which we usually get from Sauer.
Excuse me, John. Could you turn the TV off in the background?
Yeah, hold on. Marianne, turn the TV off.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. We usually get the colored veneers from Sauer, which is down south. And the owner has come to our meeting and told us a lot more about veneer than we knew. So, and veneer is easy to get. I think Craig mentioned Certainty Veneer, B&B Woods in Colorado, and there's several other places where it's relatively, inexpensive. I would not advise buying it at the wood show, though. They charge more than they should. but that's how it is. Any other questions?
One of the other
Okay.
things I was super impressed with is, was it Frank that makes the kaleidoscopes? I don't know
Right.
if Woodturners remember seeing his work, but he's big into CNCs, and I'm not sure if he's got a 3D printer, but his kaleidoscopes are masterful works of art. You know,
Correct.
probably hundreds of pieces and just absolutely gorgeous. I'm sure some of our guys have seen them at the
Yeah,
show. It's just a
when people see them, you hear the word awesome, impossible. How do you do that? Another common question, how many hours does it take? You know, Frank has heard it in that respect. And usually every month, Frank makes something different. He also makes his own tools for a lot of things. And he's had patents and all that. So he's a very skilled individual.
yeah.
We have people do carving, and some of it you look at it and say, wow. We have a member from Russia that
Oh man, that guy's
does fantastic work. He does carving using cow bones. And when you see the end result, you'd say, how do you do that? You know?
he demonstrated that last month. Well,
Yeah,
he showed some of his work, and
right.
this is super high-end sculpture that you would find in the best museums in the world.
Yep.
The workmanship was just incredible.
We have a doctor who's an eye doctor at Will's Eye Hospital. His work, anytime he submits it to the national, he wins. His work is amazing, sometimes including 5,000 plus pieces. And he specializes in doing Persian rugs in veneer.
Oh, I've seen his work. It's incredible. I didn't realize he was in your club.
Yeah, he's in our club. He doesn't come to a lot of meetings because he's usually on call. But he comes at least 2-3 times a year and brings some of his work, which, he's been asked that question, how many hours? Some pieces are 1,000 hours that he puts in, and if you see the result, I don't know how he does it because the pieces are so fine, so small. It's amazing how you can cut it like that. And he exclusively uses an X-Acto knife or a scalpel. So he has the skill as a surgeon that he's applying to what he calls a hobby. Okay. You cannot, I don't believe you can make any money making marquetry pictures because of the amount of time it takes. Although I did have a call one time from a guy he was from Texas, but he had a client in the Middle East that wanted an unusual picture of the world in marquetry that was like 16 feet wide, 8 foot high.
Oh my God.
And we were talking, I said, this would be very expensive. The answer he gave me, no price is too high. He was going into a building in the Middle East somewhere. And apparently the person who was buying it had money to purchase it. no one in our club wanted to do it because of the amount of work, including we had another former member who was from Ukraine. He was able to do it. However, he turned it down because he had a carpentry shop and he had too many customers that wanted his work. He had about a year's worth of work, so he turned it down. A guy from Minnesota did it. I never knew what the total cost or what he charged for it, but it probably was well over $100,000. But it would have taken someone probably 6 months to a year to do it. So that kind of changes my statement, but that's the only piece I know where you could have made money. You know, the other
Well,
things,
that was a commission, so, yeah.
yeah. Okay, anything else?
No, thank you, John. We really appreciate that.
Okay,
It reminds me when Craig said, hey, why don't you come down and check it out? And your club is very similar to the Woodturners. Like Craig said, a bunch of gray hair in those clubs.
Yeah.
And I found being associated with these clubs is terrific to be around very creative people. You know, we're all sharing the hobby of woodworking, either round or this flat work and veneering. But just being around people with the same mindset that don't mind spending time and effort to make something beautiful, and very creative people. It's a real joy to be associated with these types of clubs.
a comment I hear often is, great, the guys are very friendly. If you need help, you'll get it. I know if Craig is listening, I know he's helping another one of our members do a project. Okay. And not only Craig, but many others will help. Okay. I originally got involved. I saw a sign at Woodworkers Haven that I think disappeared. But if you're interested in marquetry, they left a phone number. I called. They said, sure, come on over to my house. This was before the meeting. And they showed me what they were doing. We've had members in the high 90s. We had one individual that 2 weeks before his 100th birthday, he finished a picture. So it's amazing, that kind of thing. I'm not doing anything now. I don't know, maybe Craig heard, but I'm going to stand up. Do you see this? I have a broken back, and I am in recovery from that. But I still do marquetry, but it's the same old thing. What do you do after you have 50 pictures? Or
I've been shipping out some bowls this week because I got a stack of bowls.
Right. How many bowls do you need?
Right.
How many do you need? How many items of carving do you need? You know, it's that thing. But what's important is the enjoyment of doing it. Yeah, and it's fun.
Yeah. Well, you've got a very nice show and tell also every month.
Right.
People bring in all different types of work, and it's just fun being around these types of folks.
Yeah.
And we've had several members of the Woodturners, and also in the Garden State Marquetry Society.
Yeah. I don't know. Is Gil a member of your club?
Yes. He's
Okay.
He's a past president, and I think he dropped out of Garden State a couple of years ago. He's in process of moving right now.
Yeah. For years he was very active.
Right.
Then he got, I think, so much into wood turning he had no time.
Right. And he's also involved with the Bucks County Woodturners.
Right.
And I said he was our president for 6 years up until 3 years ago when I was able to take over the helm.
Oh, one other comment. Most of the people in the club that do marquetry use an X-Acto knife. However, you can do marquetry with a scroll saw. Little different technique, but it can be done that way. You know, if you don't like using a knife, you can always do it with the scroll saw.
All right. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. You can
Hey, thank you.
go back on mute, please.
Anyone from the woodworking club or the turning clubs is certainly welcome to come to meetings. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Back to Craig.
Thank you, John. That was very informative.
Okay,
And John is, I've known him for a couple of years. He's terrific. He really knows his history and stuff. Very, very well-informed gentleman. While John was talking, I did another straight pattern. And basically, putting it together here. And I'm going to take the tape off in a few minutes in the back, and we'll see what this pattern looks like. And then we can actually inlay it, if we have time, into a field.
So again, the possibilities are endless here, right? Just different widths, different colors, different shapes. No two are alike.
Although you can make copies if you'd like, depending on.
Well, with my projects, I always like saying, hey, this is the only one in the country, right? And this is a unique item.
I like that as well, and I think it has more sale power,
Right.
if you have that.
Have you ever had a customer that helped design the pattern? They said, I want something specific.
Usually what they do is they'll ask me to reproduce or make something similar to a pattern that already exists.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they'll show you a piece or a photo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it's something that I've made in the past.
Oh, okay.
I have a photo of it, and they want similar.
That's right. Do you have a website?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't have a website. I have no web presence at all. All my business is through word of mouth.
Right.
And I'm busier than I know what to do with right now. I just got a job with for a woman who was involved with a flood on insurance. I mean, it's a huge job. It's 20 pieces, furniture.
It's such a cool retirement gig too.
Oh,
Right. So when Craig's not fishing, he's in the shop.
Yep. It's a wonderful thing. I mean, basically, you could take a piece of furniture that's firewood. You know, it's in terrible shape, and bring it back so that the family can use it, or you know, they could sell it.
Oh, that's right. You get a lot of sentimental work.
Yeah. Well, basically, most of the work I do was Aunt Bertha's from, you know, my ex-father-in-law or something, or it was my father's, and it's the only piece I have, and I get a lot of that. As soon as I hear that, I know I got the job. It's very simple.
This is my great-great-grandmother's.
Well, I had one woman, she came to me once, and she had this, it was a pie crust table. It was really a nice table. It was English, definitely European. So she basically said to me, this was my father's. So it was missing a piece of pie crust, and 2 pieces were broken off, but they were there. And it was in relatively good shape. Even the finish was in good shape. So she said, I want it refinished. This was my father's. And I looked at it and I said, you know what? I said, this was not your father's. I said, this was your father's father's father's. I said, and I could refinish this piece and it would cost you $325. And then your $3,000 piece would be worth $325.
Mhm.
I said, just let me fix it, leave it alone. And she did. And she has a beautiful family heirloom now. That's worth quite a bit of money. Anyway, back to the inlay. This is what I did while John was talking. You could see this piece has some personality. I have to tape it up a little more in the back here, these seams. But otherwise, it's pretty much complete. So,
Does your beautiful wife, Denise, ever help you do design? I ask her, my wife, a lot. What do you think about color or whatever? She's got a better flair for that than I do.
I would love to say yes,
Mhm.
but no.
Yeah,
I do.
You have all the
everything
creativity.
myself.
You got the creativity and the skill.
Well, she's also very talented in different ways.
Right?
But when it comes to the wood, that's me.
That's your gig. Huh?
Yeah. Okay, so the veneer tape keeps this together, obviously. It keeps it from drifting apart. Right there, cut right.
Just while you're doing it, I'm going to show this other thing that I did. So I just finished this up today. This is called the Impossible Puzzle. And that took about 20 hours to cut all that. There's actually, I'm about to publish the video on it. But in order to make that, there was actually 6 different patterns, and you have to make whatever that 6-sided shape is. Then you tape them all together. So that was a real labor of love. So again, the possibilities are just incredible what you can do. All right, so what are we doing now?
Okay, so basically I put a panel together already. This is a birch burl. It's fairly expensive material, and I just thought it would be a nice field. So now that's all together. So this is the back side. This is the glue side. This is the face side. So what we want to do now is we want to position this thing in the center and then tape it. So what I did was I measured the lines and basically I'm going to
I'm sorry, was this a 4-way book match? Or is this just 3 parallel pieces?
No, this is 3 parallel pieces.
Okay.
All right, and they're not really parallel. These 2 are parallel, this one's different. But it's just, once this piece is together, it's going to be a pretty cool looking whirl effect. What we want to do now is we're going to tape this piece down. And then we're going to start cutting it out into the surface of this panel. All right, so.
Now, I think the cutting up until this point was relatively simple. What you're about to do was a little bit more fine work.
Well, this is critical because you can't
Can't make
do
mistakes
this
here.
over. I mean, basically, you have a panel. This particular piece of wood probably cost $8 or $9. And if you mess it up, you mess it up. You have to make a new panel.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
Can you explain the different tapes again, please?
Okay. We have two different types of veneer tape. We have this particular tape, which is self-adhesive, which allows me to do the work straight through the entire project without waiting for something to dry or something to change. This particular panel, if you look closely at it, it has a veneer tape on it that was the wet veneer tape. And basically, it's perforated, and the reason it's perforated is because I can see where the seams go together. So when I'm laying the tape, I know exactly where to put it. Once this tape starts to dry, it draws the pieces of wood together, and it makes the joint tighter.
It dries in how long? An hour? Or what?
And it takes about 4 hours. Yeah, I would use it before that. But again, I mean, that means you have to wait for your project. Where with this dry tape, I mean, you're right into it. You can do whatever you need to do. All right, so I'm taking this down so that it's all good. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to see. I'm going to raise it.
Now it's time for a new blade.
Yeah, I'm going to change the blade. So basically,
what you're doing is tracing all these straight edges.
yes.
Right? It's really kind of a negative at this point. You're cutting out the negative space.
All right, so what I want to do is just go right along the edge of this. Right up to the edge.
Craig, are you trying to cut a square cut, or are you trying to make a little bit of a taper so that?
It's a little bit of a taper. It's about 3 degrees. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought it up. I forgot about that. It's about a 3 degree taper. When I finish a section, I usually put a mark on it so I know I'm done with that.
Which direction is the taper? Is it to the outside? Or in,
The taper, the top of the blade is to the right, so it's to the outside. Yes.
The idea being you want the inlay that you're tracing around to press fit into the background.
That's right.
the inlay has almost a little taper to, or the piece you're cutting has a taper to it.
So now I'm done with that one. What I'm going to do is put a piece of tape on it to maintain its position. Take this off. Very, very slight taper. You can hardly notice it. You know, a self-healing mat, I don't think would have the rigidity to sustain this, and it would wave in and out. You would have fluctuations in your straight edge. You cut. This goes pretty quick, but you have to really be careful. You don't want to make any mistakes at this point.
So I think it's pretty cool you're doing this without another straight edge. You're actually using the main pattern is the straight edge.
Yes, I'm using the veneer as a straight edge. Exactly.
I don't know if my hands are stable enough to do this. As I get older, I was getting a little shaky.
You're putting a relatively light touch in.
What'd you say, Bob?
You're putting a relatively light touch on that cut. You're just doing it many times.
Yes.
Yeah, it's taken 3 or 4 cuts on on each straight line.
You want to take your time. You want to basically have a very light first cut, just kind of a light score along that edge of the veneer, because it really isn't much of an edge.
I'm wondering, hey, Maurice, you still with us? I'm wondering, has anybody else in the Jersey Woodturners tried this? I think Maurice dropped out. Okay, has anybody else in the Woodturners tried this at all? So Gil used to do it, and Jim Paolini was in the Marquetry Club. Are you spending special attention in the corners?
Well,
Just make sure you're all the way through.
you have to be careful because you chip the corners. That could be a problem. So you have to be very, very cautious.
I'm sorry, Bob.
Craig, all the techniques you've used and the way you've done all your cuts and setup and so forth, that's done the same way no matter what pattern you want to use. It's all done the same way, correct?
Yes, it is. So if you look at some of the work that you saw at the beginning that was pre-recorded, those geometric forms are cut the exact same way. But they're a little more difficult because the corners are very thin and they tend to chip. You have to use a little more blue tape in a different way.
Are you talking about these?
Yes.
Yeah. What he's talking about these patterns. So imagine cutting, this is the field, right? So then you have to trace each one of those very carefully. So when Craig has a little downtime, so he went nuts one Saturday and made all these. He said, this is a different day. But again, the possibilities are endless. So we got a few more straight cuts, and then we can take out the center of this field.
Hey, Bob,
Yes.
those little tiny pieces that Craig just pulled out of the box, they were basically geometric shapes, but reminded me of something Michael Kays was doing. You know, he likes to do a lot of animal shaped or wildlife shaped inlays, and he actually did a video for Woodcraft magazine where they was inlaying them into the top of a solid wood table that he turned.
Oh, okay. I didn't know he did that, but thanks.
Yeah. Is there anything he doesn't do?
Yeah, right.
We're getting close here. Almost done.
Yeah, it was either for Woodcraft Magazine or it was for AAW. I forget which. He's done multiple things for both.
Here's one of his pieces. This was one
Oh
of
yeah,
this is one of his duds, and it was a dud because it chipped out here.
yeah.
So I was over there harvesting some other wood, and he said, "Hey, you want this?" I said, "Sure, I'll take that."
Yeah, so what are you going to do? You're going to chuck it and pull and cut out the top and make
I'm
an
probably just
inlay
gonna
piece?
fill that.
Yeah,
This was the piece of wood that he was giving to me one day.
yeah.
This was about, I don't know, this was about 5 inches thick at the time. He chopped it up on his with his chainsaw, and I cut this in May. I've been drying it, and I just finished this off, and this is going to be a present for
Nice.
my niece. I just put a YouTube video
Yeah.
up on this one.
Here's one of the pieces I got from him for that same batch of wood.
Let me see. Hold on. Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you were over there too.
Oh yeah.
That looks like it's got a lot more spalting in it.
Well, and actually, it was kind of an odd piece. You probably can't see it in my iPad camera, but about 85% of this piece had really nice spalding, and the rest of it was kind of blind.
Right.
And bland. And I learned a trick from Dave Souza, and I actually took out a real fine point and some India ink, and I drew some spalting on. and then I used some India ink that my wife had given me in multiple colors for Christmas, and I diluted it and mixed it like watercolors to try to give a little bit of shading to some of the areas of spalding I drew in. But yeah, I made good use of a few pieces I got from Michael from that same batch.
Yeah.
Somebody dropped off those logs at his house because he had more than he knew what to do with, and it was
Right.
going to go bad.
Right. I know. Yeah. Well, I also I think I got to make like 8 or 9 blanks out of it. Here.
Yeah.
That one down there under the lathe is one of them. I've got about, I don't know, 7 or 8 that are that thick.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got one sitting on my coffee table in front of me here. It's a 14-inch fruit bowl.
All right, back to Craig. Thanks, Brian. Okay, so this is
Sure.
the back of that panel. All right, so now, ta-da, almost done. That fits in there fairly nicely. I'm doing this so this thing doesn't fall out of position though. I'll flip it around. Use your roller. Get it in there. That bevel tightens things up. Okay. And we're in pretty good shape. So now, our veneer tape again. We're going to leave this glue tape on there. So what? So you did that in about a little over an hour and 15 minutes. You come up with this amazing design, right? That's it. And from there, it's to the press. To the press. Stop the presses. So
We'll talk about that in a second when we get this tape off.
Yeah.
Before it goes into press.
You guys hang in there. We got another 10 minutes or so. We'll show you what's next.
Yeah, I hope I'm not boring too many people.
No, most everybody stayed. You only lost one person.
Okay, good. Actually, put that on this side. That was a split in the surface, crack in the veneer. Basically, just tape it so that you're good.
All right. So next we're going to be doing is determining what substrate we want to use, right?
Right.
And the substrate being either MDF or Baltic birch plywood, right?
Use MDF or, you know, a decent plywood. It doesn't have to be Baltic birch. It does have to be decent.
Yeah, the last piece I got, and I actually put it in my gun case there, it was from Home Depot, and I think it was some Chinesium. It was, I don't think the wood was all that great, or the glue on it was that great.
All that taping doesn't leave any kind of residue that you have to wipe off?
That's what your panel's going to look like.
Hmm.
So it's kind of an interesting design. Hold it up. And what's going to happen is the seams that we have that are visible, once we're going to use a colored glue, and that glue will fill up those seams and you won't see anything. So it'll,
I can attest to that. It helped me out tremendously on my gun case. So we're going to put this into a vacuum bag now, and that's more modern technology where we're using a vacuum pump and a vacuum bag. But let's talk a little bit about the history before electricity and pumps.
Okay, basically what they would do is they made calls and they would press this against whatever surface, usually wood of some sort, and they would basically put weight on it, or they would tighten these clamps. That would put pressure on the veneer, and they would use, most of the time they use high glue. And there are two ways of using high glue. You could do it with the coil, or you could actually apply it hot with a veneer hammer, which is this tool, and basically press the glue. The glue would be behind the surface, and you would press the glue out and leave a very thin layer underneath. And as it cooled, it hardened and basically kept your panel on the surface of your substance.
But like I always say, my good friend Mr. Electricity has helped us modern people.
Yes.
And
okay, so this is your top with the veneer tape, and that's how it's going to go into the bag. So the bag, and this is kind of a cool pattern right there.
yeah, that's what came out of it. So if you're a Batman fan or is this an X-Wing fighter? A Star Wars job. And of course you could use this also. You could always cut that into, so that's not waste. So in case you don't know what a vacuum bag is, we're going to show that. And I think probably the expensive thing about this hobby would be the vacuum bag and certainly the vacuum pump. And I know there's good Woodturners like vacuum pumps for vacuum chucks. Okay, the bag itself, obviously they come in different sizes so that you can deal with different projects. I mean, they come, this is a small bag. It's 27 by 25. And for a panel like this, it's perfect. So this would be on our surface. You would cut your panel to fit, obviously, or you would make your panel to fit the surface that you're required to deal with. Right.
And once it's on your surface, All right, you would basically, let's say this is my surface that I'm going to glue this to. You would take your glue and you would just basically use a roller and put a very thin film. More glue is not a good thing. Very thin film on the entire surface. Make sure that you have your edges well glued, and then you would simply put it in the bag by,
And there is special veneering glue. You don't use Type-On for this, right?
no, use a cold pressed glue, and veneersupplies.com. That's the other place I was trying to think of before. That's the guy. All right, so let's say this is the panel. Of course, it would be maybe a little oversized, or the veneer would be a little oversized. I would not recommend the veneer being any more than an eighth of an inch. Now this is obviously too big, this panel, but this is how it goes in. We have our glue is wet now. We would put what we call breather mesh on it. All right,
Riva?
breather.
Breather. Oh, breather. Okay.
Breather mesh. All right, so this stuff basically, what this does, it would cover the entire panel.
This helps evenly distribute the
pressure.
the pressure. What is it?
Yes.
What do you call it? An atmosphere. It creates an atmosphere. Right?
It sucks out the air, and basically what you have is you have an atmosphere of pressure pressing down on this evenly. So basically your bag, this piece goes here. This piece just pops on there. You have your vacuum crust next to you. You turn it on, you plug it in. It sucks down, it sucks all the air out, sucks down your parcel in here, and 1 hour, you take it out. And basically, you let it cure. You could trim it, but you let it cure for maybe 12 hours, and then you could attack it. You could start sanding it. You could do whatever you have to do. You build your frame around it, whatever. So that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. All right.
Pretty much
That
it.
pretty much wraps up the demo. Do we have any questions about it? Certainly appreciate everybody showing up today. Hope you learned something. Hope you got inspired.
Hey, Craig?
I got a question.
Go ahead.
When you're sanding, you're not starting with 80 grit, right?
No.
No.
Your veneer is 1/32 of an inch.
Right.
What I do is I use a scraper, and I'll take down any high spots first, and then from there I'll go into it with an orbital sander, maybe with 120 very lightly, and then a 220. And 220 is usually good enough. Your eye will not catch any marks in your wood at 220. So you can finish it off at that point.
And making the boxes standard woodworking.
Yes.
All the expertise was in that. And actually, it's pretty easy to pick that up.
Yeah, it's not really mysterious. It's not that difficult. It's not expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So it brings your work to a totally higher level. Things that you just would have never dreamed you could do, you will get done.
Right.
Just at a much better scale.
Yep. Any other questions?
Yes, Craig, when you are gluing that piece of veneer that you've made into a pattern onto the plywood or the MDF, is the plywood or the MDF slightly oversized to the project, or is the veneer slightly oversized so you can trim later?
Okay, you could do it either or. All right, if you do oversize your MDF, then obviously you're going to trim it out on your table saw later on. Or if you decide to do your veneer, I usually do my veneer oversized. And you cannot do it over 1/8 of an inch, because what will happen is the bag will press down on that oversize and break it. So you're going to have these little cracks all along the edges, and you don't want that. If you stay within the 1/8 of an inch parameter, then you'll be able to cut it off once the setup cures and you can basically sand it out, and the panel will be perfect. You're also going to take the tape off the following day. Sometimes, depending on the wood you're using, the tape can actually take some of the wood fiber with it, and that can be a problem. And I found that to alleviate that situation, what I do is I use a heat gun, and it heats the tape up and softens the glue, the veneer tape glue, and it will not pick those fibers up.
Any other questions?
If anybody wants more information, they're more than welcome to contact me directly. If you decide to do this type of project and you run into an obstacle that you're not sure of, you're more than welcome to give me a call. Bob has my number, or the Marquetry Club has my number. So just give me a call, and I'll be more than happy to help you.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, guys. Thanks so much for attending tonight. This concludes.
Thank you. We thank you.
Oh,
I want to thank everyone for allowing me to do this. I enjoy it.
Can I just give a shout out, John? John from the Garden State. Please feel better. I didn't know you were in a cast over there. Feel better, buddy. I miss you.
Thank you, Craig, for a great demonstration. It was very interesting.
Thank you, Bob, for all those great questions.
I hope we realize how lucky we all are that during this COVID, we have this to keep us occupied.
That's right. Well, quite honestly, that's one of the, we've been doing a lot of these, not just the monthly meetings, but these mini clinics where we're doing it every week or every other week and getting the members to demonstrate either different tools or techniques. So it's been a lot of fun.
This is a great way to enhance your project, I'll tell you.
Right.
Great.
And again, just dealing with and hanging out with really creative people. So
I'm a novice and I'm amazed at your skills. I really am.
Hey, Bob, can we just remind the Woodturners that Patty is up next Monday at 7
Yep.
with relief carving, pyrography, and coloring.
Yep, Patty Jane. Actually, I'm gonna put a email out tomorrow. I'm gonna set up the thing, and then for next month we're gonna have Mike Walt from the UK
Great.
do
Great.
a demonstration for us.
Bob, I'll send you an introduction for Patty that she sent me. I just sent it back to her for final approval, and I'll get it to you in the next day or so. A teaser.
Very good.
Okay. Thanks again for a great demo.
Okay.
Gentlemen,
Thanks,
everyone
everybody.
stay safe. Thank you all. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a good evening. Bye-bye. I'm gonna sign off
Bye.
now.